The spring of 1945 brought the Pacific War to its blood-soaked crescendo. Across the vast ocean, American fleets advanced like an unrelenting tide, closing in on the Japanese home islands. Their target was Okinawa, the last stepping stone before Japan itself placed the Imperial High Command vowed to defend at all costs. What unfolded there was not only the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific campaign, but also one of the most savage battles of the Second World War. A struggle that revealed both the desperation of a dying empire and the immense cost of victory. Okinawa, a subtropical island of jagged cliffs, green ridges, and sugarcane fields, was no ordinary battlefield. It was home to nearly 300,000 civilians, people whose daily lives, fishing, farming, tending to ancestral shrines, would be swept up in a storm of fire and steel. For Japan, Okinawa was the front line of survival. For the United States, it was the gateway to Tokyo Bay. The stakes could not have been higher. In Tokyo, Prime Minister Kuniaki Koiso had resigned in disgrace in April 1945, leaving the government desperate for a strategy. Emperor Hirohito, though cloaked in divine silence, was watching the encroaching collapse. The Japanese military conceived of Operation Tingo, a plan to bleed the Americans so terribly on Okinawa that Washington might hesitate before invading the home islands. General Matsuru Ushijima, commander of the Japanese 32nd Army, prepared his men for a fight to the death. His troops dug into caves, tunnels, and underground bunkers carved into Okinawa's limestone hills. They would not contest the beaches. Instead, they would lure the enemy inland into a labyrinth of death. On the American side, Operation Iceberg was meticulously planned. The U.S. Navy assembled over 1,500 ships in armada, greater than Normandy's. Admiral Raymond Spruance commanded the fleet, while General Simon Bolivar Buckner Jr. led the 10th Army, a force of 180,000 soldiers and Marines. Their orders were clear: seize Okinawa, establish air bases, and prepare the final assault on Japan itself. Among them marched young men who had fought from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, hardened yet weary, counting the islands left between them and home. The invasion began on April 1st, 1945, Star Sunday. The beaches were strangely quiet. Marines scrambled ashore, expecting a hail of fire, but instead found abandoned sand and scattered obstacles. It was the eeriest landing of the war, one Marine later recalled. But the silence was deceptive. As U.S. forces pushed inland, the Japanese defenders unleashed their trap. Mortar, machine guns, and artillery thundered from concealed caves. Hillsides that looked empty erupted in flame. The Battle of Okinawa had truly begun. The fighting soon centered on two ridges that became legendary: Shuri Line in the south and Sugarloaf Hill near Naha. There, combat devolved into a nightmarish grind of grenades, flamethrowers, and bayonet charges. Marines advanced yard by yard, often through mud slick with rain and blood. The 6th Marine Division assaulted Sugarloaf Hill 14 times before finally seizing it, suffering thousands of casualties for a patch of ground barely larger than a football field. One survivor remembered, "You could smell death before you saw it." Above the battlefield, a new terror rained down: the Kamikaze. Nearly 1,500 Japanese pilots hurled themselves against the American fleet in suicide missions, turning aircraft into living bombs. On April 6th alone, 355 kamikazes struck, sinking 6 ships and damaging dozens more. The USS Bunker Hill was hit so ferociously the flames engulfed her deck, killing nearly 400 men. Admiral Chester Nimitz later said of Okinawa, "It was the most furious sea-air battle in history." In one final, desperate gamble, Japan launched the super battleship Yamato on a one-way voyage toward Okinawa. With only enough fuel for a single trip, her mission was suicide. Beach herself, become a fortress, and fight until destroyed. American aircraft intercepted her on April 7th. Waves of torpedo bombers struck relentlessly. Explosions ripped through her decks until the pride of the Imperial Navy rolled over and sank, taking 3,000 sailors with her. The last great battleship had gone down in flames, a symbol of Japan's crumbling might. On land, civilians endured unimaginable suffering. Caught between armies, many Okinawans were forced by Japanese soldiers into caves or used as human shields. Families clutched grenades distributed by the military, told it was better to die together than be captured. Survivors later remembered the cries of mothers and children lost in the smoke-filled caves, their voices silenced by the horror of war. By the end, 1 in 4 Okinawans would be dead. By June, the Japanese defense collapsed under relentless American pressure. General Ushijima, recognizing the inevitable, chose ritual suicide rather than surrender. On June 22nd, the battle officially ended. But victory came at a staggering cost. The Americans had lost nearly 50,000 men killed or wounded. Japanese military casualties exceeded 100,000. Civilian deaths reached 120,000 or more. Okinawa was annihilated, and the world glimpsed what an invasion of Japan itself might mean. The aftermath of Okinawa shaped the final decision in Washington. President Harry Truman and his advisors looked at the butcher's bill and saw only worse to come. If one island had consumed so many lives, what would the cost of invading Honshu or Kyushu be? Some estimates reached 1 million Allied casualties. It was in this grim light that the atomic bomb tested successfully in July appeared, not as a new horror, but as an alternative to an even greater bloodbath. The shadow of Okinawa stretched all the way to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yet the legacy of Okinawa was not only military. For the Japanese people, it was a bitter reminder of how far their leaders had gone to prolong the war, sacrificing civilians in a doomed struggle. For the Okinawans themselves, it was trauma etched into memory, a scar on the landscape and the soul of an island. To this day, memorials dot the ridges and cliffs, engraved with the names of all who perished, soldiers and civilians, Japanese and American alike. The cornerstone of peace, unveiled decades later, bears thousands of names, not divided by nationality but united in death. For the United States, Okinawa was a victory, but a costly one, proof of the enemy's fanatic resolve. Marines and soldiers who survived carried the memory for the rest of their lives. One veteran wrote, "We left part of ourselves there. On that island, we saw the price of war stripped bare." Okinawa's lessons influenced generations of military planners and statesmen. A reminder that in modern war, victory could taste as bitter as defeat. Today, Okinawa stands as both a vital U.S. military outpost and a symbol of reconciliation. Where once machine guns rattled, cherry blossoms now bloom. Where caves echoed with screams, children now play. Yet the ghosts of 1945 linger. Each year, survivors gather to remember, lighting candles for the dead and repeating the vow, never again. For Japan, Okinawa is a final testament to sacrifice and the futility of war. For the world, it is a warning etched in blood and stone. This was Japan's last defense, a battle fought with courage and desperation, a battle that shaped the ending of World War II and the dawn of the atomic age. To study Okinawa is to confront the brutal reality of total war, the clash of empires, the suffering of innocence, and the fragile line between victory and tragedy. This episode was crafted with care and dedication to bring history alive for you. If you value this kind of in-depth storytelling, immersive, researched, and unflinching, consider supporting the effort to keep such stories alive. History demands to be remembered, and together we can ensure it is never forgotten.